Actually, we're gonna let Laura. Okay, there we go. Hey, welcome. This is the first of 3 free classes I'm doing this summer as part of Summer School 2023. And you might be thinking, why is she doing all these classes? There's a lot of classes. Because I'm usually teaching book workshop and I don't get a chance to do this fun stuff that's in the back of my mind. We did a survey a few months ago about what do you almost want to learn from me? And then, so those 2 masterclass I'm offering later this summer that were the top picks. And I decided to also do these 3 free classes because this stuff is on my mind and stuff I always talk about that I wish people knew. And so that's what we're doing today. Today we're talking about how to make critical publishing decisions. So I think we tend to ask questions and then our answers come from a place of either insecurity, misinformation, disinformation, inner critic trolls telling us what we can and can't do. An example would be the other day I was in Author Collective, which is a group of alums from my workshop that meet every week. And I said, I said to one of the authors, are you maybe going to pitch traditional, try to get a traditional book deal? And it had never occurred to this person to do that. And I think it's because we have some ideas about what's possible just so ingrained in us from other people telling us what's possible. And I would love for you to open your mind today to think about it in a different way. It may be that you end up with the same path, but let's change it up. Let's really think about this in a different way. That's my goal today. My secondary goal is to also make sure that you can have a loose plan for the rest of this year. It's almost the end of June. So I have my goal is that you can think about what can I do July through December to continue to make progress. Here's how today is going to work. I have a worksheet. I want to introduce, first of all, sorry, Laura Stone. And I think I didn't even say my own name. I'm AJ Harper, by the way. That's not because I think everybody should know me. It's because I think I have, early menopause fog brain today is what I think is happening. I am AJ Harper. If you want to know more about me, Laura will put my bio in the chat at some point today. What you need to know is that I'm on a mission to help authors write better books. That's what I'm love doing. That's what I hope to do for all of you today in some capacity. Laura Stone is my chief of operations, but more really what I love to say, she's our dean of students and resident cheerleader, and really has helped authors in our community stay the course and get their books done by helping cheer them on along the way. Laura will be your tech support today. If you have questions, please message her rather than me, because I won't be seeing direct messages during most of today. Secondly, she's putting in the chat a document I'd love for you to download. And it's a worksheet. So I decided to kind of do things. I like interactive classes. That's what I like to do. I don't want to just talk at you. I want to work with you. What I decided to do today is a little change up from what I normally do. I'm going to give you some education, but walk you through filling out this worksheet. I hope will give you some clarity. And it can, no matter where you are in the publishing process, I think it can be helpful. So some of it might not apply to you, but that's okay. Grab that worksheet, please. If you need it in another way, please let Laura know. This is the preferred way because it's the easiest, easier than a Google Doc and trying to give you permission and all of those silly things. But she does have options for you if you can't download it. Laura, if you can just make sure to keep putting that in the chat as we move forward for those who are coming a little bit later. To kick us off, I want to just get a quick sense of what are your intentions for today, just so I make sure that I'm addressing everything. So first question I want to ask is, where are you in this process, publishing process? So just getting started, working on a manuscript, editing, publishing, maybe you're already published. Just give me a little sense of it. Just getting started. You just throw that in the chat, and that's helpful for me. Working on a manuscript, getting started, 30,000. Awesome, Erica. Book proposal, finishing draft to publisher, manuscript, early phases, working on a manuscript. Just getting started, working on manuscript. Okay, lots of awesome. Okay, actually, a lot of people in this kind of same zone, I would say, which is good. And even if you're not, that's all right. Oh, hey, Hunter. Nice to see you. It's nice to see folks I haven't seen in a while, which is nice. Okay, second question. What are you really hoping to get out of class today? And just try to pick your top thing. You'll get dispel myths. Okay, that's my jam, Kat. You got that. Erica, more clarity, inspiration, motivation is also something I can do. Clarity, thank you, KP, Hunter. Practical details. Okay, yeah. No problem. Understand drivers for the different choices. Finding a starting point so I can forge a path. Better sense. Motivation and confidence. General landscape. Okay. Okay. We're good. Here's what I want to tell you. As we go, once we start the worksheet, so I'm going to give you a little background, but quickly when we start, and then you'll know, right, we're going to say, now we're going to work through the worksheet together. How I want to do it is, if you have a question that comes up as we work through it, I'd love for you to put it right in the chat. Laura's going to tip me off that we have a question. And if you feel okay with coming off mute, that's the best, because I might have a follow-up. So we're just going to treat this as a working experience. Then we're going to take a break probably around 3:10. If you need to take a break before that, it's okay. This will be recorded. You can catch up. And then we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we're going to come back and do an extensive Q&A for whatever didn't get answered in that first part, because there will, so if you can save your questions during the worksheet part to what we're working on in that moment. And then if you have additional questions that are related but didn't get covered, that's for the back end. We've got we'll probably have at least half an hour to do it, which we can get through that pretty quickly. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and dive in because we have a lot to cover today. This is a free class, but this is a lot of content. Do not expect this to be just a gentle overview. I see a lot of my students here, so they know I'm just a little extra, just a little tiny bit extra. And that's just who I am. So I accept that about myself. All right, let's get started. Make sure again that you've downloaded the worksheet. And if you can't for any reason, all the questions will be up on the screen as well. So if you're really struggling, just grab a notebook. You can always write down the question as you go. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So happy everybody's here. All right. Summer school begins. Okay, and I'm just going to leave the people there, Laura, where I would normally not, just so I can see if anybody's talking, if we do any questions as we move forward. So again, stay muted unless Laura calls on you for a question. Okay, put your questions in the chat. All right, so this is me. A bunch of you know me. I wrote this book. I've written a lot of books with a lot of people. Most of them I can't tell you about. I can tell you about Mr. Michalowicz, who is my wonderful partner. I've written all his books with him, Profit First, Clockwork, etc. Incidentally, we just finished the new book. It's called All In, and it's about building unstoppable teams. Comes out in January. And when I say we just finished the past pages on it, and we already started the next one. So that's how we roll. Which you can also get yourself into a system like that if you so desire. I also teach this class that is my heart, that I love so much, which is the Top 3 Book Workshop, and serve the authors in our community, which is my favorite thing in the world. And another little thing I should say is that I also am the head writing coach at Heroic Public Speaking, where I teach the first term of grad. All right, there's more to say, but that's all you really need to know from me right now. We're going to talk about how to make critical publishing decisions. Again, my experience is people tend to make their decisions out of fear, insecurity, lack of knowledge, or what I think is very common, misinformation. So I'm calling on you to think differently today and make decisions that are important to you from a different place. So here are just some of the practical questions. These are kind of the top questions I get about practical aspects of publishing. Does my book work? Should I self-publish my book or try to get a hybrid or traditional deal? Do I need an agent? At what point in the writing process should I write a book proposal? Do I have to finish my manuscript before I submit to agents or publishers? Can I submit to agents, hybrid publishers, and traditional publishers at the same time? When should I start marketing my book? What is a reasonable sales goal for my printed book? That's a big one. Laura's here. She can attest to this. I could come up with probably 30 or 40 more practical FAQs for me, but I wanted to highlight these are some of the big ones that I hear all the time, and we will answer these today. But this is what's really going on. This is the big stuff, or the big scary stuff. Is my idea a book or something else? Is my idea different enough, exciting enough, transformational enough for a book? How do I figure out which book idea to write first? How do I know if I'm ready to start writing my book? And is anyone going to read this thing? These are the questions that are really more about who's going to care? Who's going to care? That's really what it's about. And can I pull it out? Who's going to care? And can I do this thing? So hopefully we can answer some of those questions today. I can't make your inner critic trolls go away, but I can give you some tools to combat them. The thing is that practical stuff, all those questions we have that we don't know the answer to because we lack knowledge and experience, combined with the big scary stuff, which is all about who's going to care and can I do this thing? And then it's just a bunch of misinformation and confusion, and it just goes mishmash, untangles up, and then we make a decision based on that. And so we don't want to do that. We need to get enough knowledge and hopefully enough personal clarity and inspiration and courage to be able to make decisions from a different place. I see this so much, it pains me, I have to tell you. It just pains me. So I'm hoping we can shift the needle here today. So what you want to do is you want to think about, what does your reader need right now? Any of you who read my book or know me at all are not surprised to see this there as number one. But you also want to think about, what are your priorities related to the book? Okay. And I'll get more into this in a moment. And what are your resources? Resources are also really important. How much money do you have? How many people do you know? That sort of thing. What's available to you? So instead of thinking, what do other people tell me? What's the industry so-called norm, which most of that is bunk. What do I think I'm capable of that leads us to a compromise about what we really want to do? Let's instead start with the reader and start with you. Let's start there. You can always compromise in the end if you must. You can always do it. But let's start here with serving our reader and ourselves, okay? And then I ask you what I always ask people, why not you? If you're part of any of my communities or you see me on social, you might know why I have a piece of cake here. This is what I always say, time for cake. Whenever we have a milestone achieved, a success of any kind, doesn't have to be cake. I'm just a lover of cake. You could be whatever you decide is celebratory. Sometimes I think Laura would maybe choose wine or tacos or something. Yeah, wine and tacos, maybe. The point being, I want you to think about, why not you, and why not you get in the celebration that you want? Can we just suspend all the stuff for just 2 hours today? Let's just consider maybe, possibly, why not you? Okay. So our objectives are, today we're going to try and answer the practical questions and the big scary questions, and then make a loose, notice I say loose, plan for July through December to give you some sort of a framework, because if you have even a loose plan, you're more apt to make progress than if you just have this big question mark in the sky. So now is the time to get the worksheet out. And again, if you have questions, I want you to put them in the chat. Laura will alert me, and then I might ask you to come off mute. I'm going to have Laura read the question, and if be prepared, though, I might ask you to a follow-up question or a clarifying question. So you're going to turn to part 1, which is your book idea. And you, again, might be already in the middle of this, but just humor me today. And just answer the questions. We're going to get to all the others, get to questions that pertain to you eventually, I promise. This worksheet is designed to give you clarity, and it allows me a chance to expand on things as we go. So the first question, and this is one I always ask students when they're saying, I don't know who my reader is. Remember, we're focusing on reader, what they need, our priorities, and our resources in order to make these decisions. So answer this question: who do you want to hang out with, i.e. serve, for the next 3 to 10 years? Why do I say 3 to 10 years? Because although you can get a book done in 30 days and publish it in 90 days, the reality is if you're really trying to make a difference and you really want a book that changes things, a book that's a perennial bestseller, a book that makes a difference for you and others, it's an investment, not of months, but of years. And it doesn't mean that you are launching for 10 years. It just means you're staying committed to that readership and to serving them for a long period of time. I recently had a call with Hal Elrod, who wrote The Miracle Morning. And I asked him, well, what are your big strategies? He sold millions of copies. And self-published it, no less. And he started talking to me about some of the stuff that I already knew about. And I said, thank you so much. I was gracious, but I was really looking for what was that thing he did. And he said, you know what? It was really just that I didn't give up. I stuck with it for 10 years. So I see with authors, they often give up too soon. And I would say that's about 95% of the time. So who do you want to hang out with and, i.e. serve, for the next 3 to 10 years? You don't have to get too detailed. It's probably people you're already working with and you already serve. Okay? Who do you want to help? Again, you can ask me questions as we go. So just put them in the chat if you have them. Second question: what does your reader want? And this is the thing they want most, not a kitchen sink list. The thing they want most. And what do they perceive is standing in their way of getting it? That is italicized for a reason. Because as authors, we tend to say, this is what's standing in your way. But the reader says, but I thought it was this thing. And so you have to, in order to connect with them, you have to have an understanding of this piece, which is, I think this is what's in my way. And part of your job as an author is to dismantle that. In writing a book that changes lives, it's as much about what a reader needs to unlearn as what they have to learn. So answer this question to the best of your ability. Try not to have too many commas. Try to have just one thing if you can. Second one: to get what they want, what do your readers need to learn or do first, or most, or next? So for example, if you're writing your first book, you want to find out what's the main thing, what's the first thing that's really going to get it going for them. But maybe around book 2 or 3. So for example, when Mike and I sit down to do another book, the first question I always ask him is, what do your readers need next? Not what do you want to write? What do your readers need next? And that's what I'm asking myself right now too, for writing a book 2 about writing. Next question: do you have, this is a big one, y'all. It's a big one. Do you have a proven framework or path, system, plan, steps, idea? Are your ideas proven? Is your content proven to help them get that thing they want? Does it directly tie to the thing they want? So in other words, does your content work? Do you know for sure it works? Does it work for you and others, not just you? Will it work in a book, do you think? Versus, say, one-on-one. Don't forget, if you work one-on-one with clients or you teach, you get to explain stuff. You get to deal with their pushback and their scared faces and all that stuff. You get to handle it. In a book, you don't get to do that. So maybe you aren't sure, and that's okay. But do you have a proven framework that works to get them what they want? Do you know enough about your readers to meet them where they are right now and then guide them where they want to go? The right now piece is so critical because sometimes the reader is an earlier version of you, but you're so disconnected that you can't quite remember what that felt like. But do you know enough? Or maybe you aren't, your reader is not an earlier version of you. You just don't know enough about what's going on with them at this moment. That's the first part. Now, why did I go through that whole, let me go back up here. Why did I go through that whole section? Because the more you actually can say, yep, I know what my reader wants. I know what they perceive as standing in the way. Yep, I've got a proven framework. Okay, yeah, I know enough about them that I know where they are right now and I can guide them. Then that is the answer to all those big, scary questions. What does my, is anyone going to read this thing? Is this the right book to give them at this moment? Or should I do a different book? Is this even a book? Does my content work? Who am I to write this? All those big, scary questions. If you had confidence answering these questions, then you're on the right track. Even if you aren't 100% sure, but you had some confidence, write the book. If you aren't totally clear, then you have some work to do in the development stage. That does not mean you shouldn't write it. It just means you have some recon to do. You got to ask some questions. You got to talk to some people. You have to get a little more clarity. That just means that's where you are right now. It doesn't mean you shouldn't write the book. Is that all clear? Okay, does anyone have a question about this first part one? We're good, Laura? Okay. So again, this is all related to big, scary questions. And by the way, when we don't have this clarity about who, what's going on with them, what they want, what's standing in the way, if we know them well enough, all that, if we don't know that stuff, it makes it harder to feel confident, not just writing and moving forward, but also pitching, thinking we maybe could get a deal, thinking we could sell it. There's this book coach, and he teaches a class, Chad Allen, and he's so great. And he had me come and speak to his class. And during the class, he showed he made a pie chart of my book and what percentage of my book, Write a Must Read, was develop versus write versus edit. And the writing pie was teensy tiny. You would say, give me more pie. That's a tiny piece of pie. I need more pie. The develop piece was a good 3 slices. And the edit piece was most of the pie. And he said, why is this? He did it to show me. He said, why did you do this? You just have this tiny little sliver for writing. It's because develop is critical. You can't skip it. You have to answer all these questions I just gave you with confidence. If you can't answer them with confidence and succinctly, you're not ready to move out of that stage. And then where editing is concerned, I mean, that's where you actually make a book good. Writing is the main issue with writing is, can I get past my inner critic troll today to get words on the page? So develop, that's I answered his question in that way, but I really want to stress to you that this part is crucial. When you don't feel confident about this stuff, it influences everything you do, all the decisions you make. So let's talk publishing path. And here's where I'm guessing I might get some questions. I usually have a bunch of questions, but maybe you all know your stuff. So we'll see. Again, don't be afraid to ask. And Laura will recite it if, if you're feeling nervous about coming off mute. That's okay. So now, again, in your worksheet, you want to start filling this out. Remember I said we care about your reader, which we just talked about, and your priorities and resources. That's what we're thinking about first, not what other people tell us. So I want you to rank in order of importance. There's a place where you can fill it in, little blank spots. What are the most important to you? Do you want more control in publishing? So meaning, do you want total control over the cover, the price, the timing, the title, and editorial? Total control. Or maybe it's not your main thing. Maybe your main thing is, I gotta have control over timing. I actually, the thing is, I need my book to come out in this time frame. Or are you more open? Timing might be number one for you. Royalty share. Do you need a bigger piece of the royalty? Do you need all the money for yourself? Or are you willing to share in that with a publisher? I'm going to skip distribution and come back to it because it's Mongo conversation. Credibility. Is credibility chief among your priorities? It could be if you're an academic and you can't have a self-published book because that would be a black mark for you, which is often true for some academics. I've also seen this true with people in C-suite. There's other people who might need it. If broadcast media is your main deal, that you feel like you really need to be on the Today Show all the time or something like that, maybe credibility is going to be a factor for you. It isn't to say that you couldn't get on the show with different publishing paths, but let's say credibility is number one for you. For most people, it's not, by the way. It used to be a big deal to have a, legit publisher, as they would say. I think they're all legit, but well, almost. That's not true at all. There's people that I think shouldn't be doing it. But at the same time, what I'm saying is it's not a big deal if it's hybrid versus self versus traditional for most folks, because if readers don't care is what I'm getting at. It's just if your boss cares, if you're the people who decide your tenure care, if the producer at the Today Show cares. Readers don't care. Experienced team. Is that your big thing? I want the best, most qualified people, and I'm not doing this myself. I've got to have a team. There are other considerations, but I think these are the primary considerations. What's number one for you? What's number two? Just try and rank them as best you can. You don't have to get exact, but I at least want to know, what are your big three? What are your big three? And then now we're talking resources. What level of investment can you make in getting your book to market? I am, to be clear, not talking about marketing money. I mean, getting your book to, available for sale. 0, maybe one of these others. You don't have to announce this, by the way. This is just for your worksheet purposes. It could be 0. I've also, if you decide to go some routes, could be over 6 figures, which I think is completely bonkers. And I wouldn't do it myself, but you do you if you want to do something like that. 0 is also doable, by the way. So again, I'm not talking about money you spend to market it or promote it. I'm just talking getting it to market so people can purchase it. What level of investment can you make? Do you have a friend or colleague who could introduce you to an agent or publisher? I mean, I want you to just even list acquaintances at this point. You could even do 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I know a friend of a friend of a friend. I put them all down. And if you've got 0, that's fine too. What are we doing? Paying attention to our priorities and our resources. This helps us make a decision. We have to add up all these things and take them into consideration. And then we can decide, okay, because of X, Y, Z, I see this is the best path for me. And it's okay if this was your, boyfriend in high school and you haven't talked in 25 years, but you saw that they're doing something with something, put them down. Put them down. It doesn't also matter if the person you know is in a different genre. Like, let's say your neighbor down the street is an editor for a company that does picture books or young adult or whatever. They have connections. They are often working at a publishing house that publishes many genres or has other imprints. Or if they're an agent, they are often working at a firm that has different types of representation. So it doesn't have to be exactly in your genre. We are basically casting the widest net possible. Who could you possibly talk to? Are you up for knocking on some doors? Meaning, can you handle rejection is basically that question. Are you cool with it? Do you feel like you could maybe take it if you didn't hear from folks, or you just got to know, or occasionally someone is maybe rude, which happens. Mostly it's just dead silence or a polite no. Are you up for that? This is a genuine question, because some people just aren't up for it. Or would you rather avoid the submission process? And again, you feel free to ask me questions about what does that mean? What does the submission process mean? What are you talking about? And then here, when would you like to publish your book? If you don't have a specific timeline, that's also cool. But give me a sense of when do you envision it's coming out? These are clarifying questions that will help us get there. Okay. Now, we can't actually get to this yet. I want to go back over and go back to one slide for just a little more fill in. Bear with me while. Okay. This is what I want you to add some little notes back on this part. If control was your number one, and you really must have all the control in the whole wide world, then self-publishing is your option. If timing is important to you, for example, let's say that you got yourself a traditional deal today, time for cake, yay. You're looking at early 2025 pub date, unless a publisher fast tracks you for fall of 24, which isn't likely at this point, unless you're somehow connected to a world event, celebrity, something like that. Does that matter? Are you cool with that? Can you be open to the timing? And I encourage you to think about it, because there's other ways of getting your content out in the world and spreading the message while you wait for the book to be out. And it's actually can be really beneficial to have a long launch runway. So timing, if the timing's your number one, then self-publishing is your option. Or hybrid publishing without trade distribution, which reminds me, I forgot to say the distribution. I said, hang on. And then I just went right past it. Royalty share. Do you want all the money? Again, self-publishing is your main option. Secondary would be hybrid. And then below that is traditional. Credibility, your only option, if you really care, if it's the prime thing, number one, traditional. Below that, hybrid. After that, self. Experienced team can be traditional or hybrid. You just have to make sure that the hybrid is actually quality. You have to do your homework on it. It can't just be a company that says they're hybrid. You have to vet them. Now let's talk about distribution. Okay, simply put, most traditional publishers, and I don't mean all of them. So some very small boutique publishers, some small presses, It can take a while to get trade distribution, but most traditional publishers have it. Trade distribution is when you have a sales team that is dedicated to getting your book where you want it to be. Shelves, bookstore shelves, okay? Big box stores, big book clubs, library consortiums, all sorts of stuff that I don't want to get into with you, that they're out there trying to pitch your book. If you self-publish or have hybrid that doesn't have trade distribution, your book can still be available where all books are sold. Very often you'll see a self-publishing packager or a hybrid publisher say, we have global distribution. That does not mean that they are actually pushing it. That just means that they're making it available. That is okay for some people. It means you can say, my book is available where all books are sold. And it means that you can tell people to walk into their bookstore and order it, and the bookstore can order it. It doesn't mean it's on the shelf. Trade distribution, if you want that, you can move more books. You have a sales team that's dedicated to you at least before your book comes out. And there's a lot to be said, which I don't have time to get into today, about how you make sure your sales team is actually pitching your book versus just making it part of a whole group, because there's a whole hidden world there of pitching. But the point is, if you really were going for it, you need trade distribution. So if that's what you want, if that's your number one, which incidentally for me, I have to have it for Write a Must Read. Have to. My distributor through my publisher is Page 2, and the Macmillan is their distributor, which is a big 5 publisher. If you want that, you need a traditional publisher or hybrid publisher with verified trade distributor, which means you have to ask. Now, do you have to ask Penguin Random House or Simon & Schuster if they have trade distribution? No, don't ask them. They'll just look at you funny. But a hybrid, you should ask. A smaller press, you should ask. And you don't just ask, do you have it? You say, do you have it and who is it? All right. Everyone clear on those? Laura, are there any questions in the chat? Okay. So this is how you see, I'm going to prioritize what matters to me. Now let's look at the resources. If you are at 0 to 1,000, if you're at 0, you don't want to make 0 investment. That's traditional. That's it. That's your one option. If it's say 1,000 or maybe up to say 20,000, you're looking at self-publishing, primarily, maybe up to 5,000 self-publishing. You can get some hybrid deals for 20, but you might have to really question what you're getting for it. You might not get developmental editing if that happens. 20,000 plus is hybrid. You can also spend that much on self, but you can bargain it. You can get it down. I'm a frugal person. You can get it down low to much less in the 5 to 20 range for self-publishing. If you don't want to get a developmental editor and some other things, then you can do say 1 to 5. Under 1,000, $1 to 1,000. I mean, you're really that's a pamphlet. You're not really getting a lot of help there. You're just basically taking a PDF or something. So I want you to remember this when you're thinking about my priorities, my resources, what can I do? We're pulling these things together. Do you have a friend or colleague who could introduce you? So if you do, I want you to try for a traditional deal, if the timing is okay for you, and if control is okay for you. Traditional publishers don't take all the control and you're just some, little worker bee who does everything they say. It's not that. It's just that they have veto power on your title. And so do you. So then sometimes it's like this, that, this, that, this, that, until you finally get the title. They have final say on cover, and for good reason, because they really understand cover design and they understand the market. So you want them to have that. You have input though. And you can actually hire your own designer and present that to them. So you have options. It's a myth that you have zero control over cover. Traditional also has final say on editorial, but it's not like they're telling you what to write unless something is really wrong, right? Unless you turn in a manuscript that hasn't been edited properly before you turn it in, which is a problem. Or let's say you've put in something that could be harmful to the publisher. Maybe all of a sudden you went on some sort of rant that's going to be politically divisive, and they know that they're going to end up with a whole problem, and maybe the book will get canceled, you know, or if they're worried about being sued, then they will put the smack down, right? But the smackdown is, no, thank you. We're going to change it, or we won't publish it, you know? But that's very rare, honestly. It's, you know, when you understand the editing process, and when you know your reader so well, like we talked about in the beginning, and you really understand what they need, it's easier to get through that editorial process because you say, well, actually, this is what my reader thinks and feels, and this is why I did it this way. So I want to just dispel the myth that you have zero control with a traditional publisher. So again, if you have a friend or colleague, acquaintance, friend from 20 years ago, someone you met at a bus stop who might know someone in publishing, I want you to try, because publishing is just one gatekeeper after another. One gatekeeper after another. I see you, Laura, just one second. So if you can get past a couple gatekeepers, get it, do it, try it. You don't have to say yes. If they say, yes, we would like to publish your book, you can read the contract and decide if you agree. You know, so they don't own everything you have. They don't grab your soul. You're your firstborn. But listen, if you're a privileged person who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone, bring that person some Jello salad and ask them for a favor, because you want to get past the gate if you can. Okay. So that would be my advice. That's my personal advice. If you don't, it doesn't mean you can't. We have, from my workshop, people publishing this fall who knew no one, who have traditional and high-end hybrid deals. And they went through the regular submission process. Okay. Are you up for knocking on doors? And here's the submission process. So if the answer is no, AJ, I can't, I just need to be in my little cocoon, and I don't want to do that. I'm just going to put my book out. I don't want to mess with any of that stuff. Or I don't have the time. I don't want to add all that time of submission. And feel free to ask me what the time is. Then you have to self-publish, or some hybrids have a pretty easy entry place. Laura, the question?
Thank you. Alyssa and also Kat had the same question. Did traditional publishers, and this ties in beautifully, did traditional publishers own the IP of the book? And is it difficult to create other products from the content, like a paid workshop, mastermind programs, etc.?
So number one, they aren't supposed to own it. So you need to have an intellectual property attorney who reviews your contract to make sure that's so. What they have is the right to publish your work in that form. They have a right to those printed words in that manuscript. Not every word you ever write on that intellectual property, or everything you say. Be careful with your agent contracts, though. You need an attorney for this stuff, everybody. Sometimes agents want a piece of future speaking or a piece of something, and you just need to just refuse that. You just can't do that. A typical contract, they don't, but just double check everything with an attorney. Okay. Are there any other questions, Laura? Okay, so if you're up for the submission process, then you could do high-end hybrid, meaning they have a selective process, versus a hybrid that just publishes anyone, or traditional. Incidentally, I just want to make another caveat. You could, even if you're not up for submission, there are actually publishers that do not require you to have an agent. So it's still a submission process. You still have to follow their guidelines, but you can bypass the agent part. And actually, two of our authors who are publishing this fall, they did that. And they have a traditional, really good traditional publisher. There's a lot of publishers you've never heard of who make literally $100 million a year or more, publish a lot of titles, who don't need an agent. You just don't think of it because you're only thinking of the big 5 publishers and their imprints, but there's a lot of opportunity out there. If you if you wrote down, I want to publish my book in 2020, this year, or in 2024, traditional is pretty much off the table. And you could self-publish, or you could do hybrid without trade distribution. Now that you've thought of this, I want you to just take a minute and make a plan A, B, and C. Again, this is not about what other people told you, whether you think you have a, do you notice I didn't mention platform? I didn't mention any of that. That's not what we're doing right now. We're finding out what's important to you, your reader, and for you, it's resources and priorities. That's where we're starting from. So based on everything you just learned, what's plan A? Maybe it's different than what you thought coming in. Maybe you might say, I wonder if I should try traditional. Because here's the thing, there's always a plan B and there's always a plan C. And you might say, you know what, I'm self-publishing all the way, all the control, all the money, timing when I want it. And you might not have B or C. That's fine too, okay? But I want you to make a note now. What's your plan A? What's your plan B? What's your plan C? So I'm actually want to stop this for a moment and just, I want to get a sense of where do we land? So plan A, can you put in the chat, what's your plan A? Traditional, self, hybrid. Hybrid, traditional, 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 hybrid, traditional, hybrid. Okay. Traditional through a contest. Interesting. Okay. Self-publishing, traditional, hybrid, self-traditional. Oh, interesting, Tom. Interesting. Traditional's last. Okay. What's plan B? If you have one. If you don't have one, if you just have the one. Hybrid. Hybrid. It usually is. Hybrid. What's a hybrid? Self. Okay. Now I'd love to see, has anybody shifted their mind about what they thought they might try? Just put yes if you have. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. My work here is done. Look, I can't promise you'll get a traditional deal. I just want you to say, why not me? And then try to see what you can do to move the needle to make that happen. Every single thing you do then going forward to try to get it will help you. You'll have a stronger book, you'll have a stronger marketing plan, and you'll feel more confident about what you're doing. Everything you do. So even if in the end it's a no, nothing you will have done to try and make that happen will be lost. No effort for that is wasted. All right, so let's go back to, do we have more questions? Okay. Did I see one pop in, Laura?
Yes, and this is actually a great one because you can speak directly to this for April. If a book is self-published, is it possible for it to get picked up by a traditional publisher later?
Yeah, here's one. Profit first. You might not know this. Briefly, this is the 3rd book I wrote with Mike Michalowicz, but it was initially declined by Penguin Random House, who was our publisher on the 2nd book. They said, no one wants another accounting book. So then our very fancy, famous agent said, I can't sell it. So Mike was a little frustrated and sad. And I said the F word. I said, F them. We know how to self-publish. We know it's the right book. It's what they need next. We knew without a doubt. So you might have an earlier version of this book. It's blue and it has a pink piggy bank. Laura's going to hold it up for you. We self-published that, sold over 100,000 copies. Penguin came calling shortly after that, within a couple years, and said, oopsie. So this is the revised and expanded edition published by Penguin Random House. It was just Penguin at the time. PRH, I need to start saying. And this is about $1 million now. About $1 million. That's what trade distribution can do, by the way. So yes, the answer is yes. Do you have to sell an ass ton of copies to make them notice? Yeah, you do. I mean, minimum, oh God, bare minimum 5,000, but better for it to be 10 to 20,000. And in the first year is the key. And then you could probably get yourself a traditional deal. Does that answer the question, or do we have a follow-up?
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Yeah, please.
If one of the criteria that you had was timing, would you recommend taking that approach? Like if I wanted to release my book in 2024, and I think I'm going to have no problem hitting the 5,000 mark. Would you recommend like doing that and then approaching a traditional publisher later?
Why do you want it in 2024? Let me ask you a question.
Because I feel the need for it is more, I think the timing for it is right now.
If the timing for it is right now, and then would it not be later?
I don't know. My industry's changing a lot in the next photography, right? With the advent of AI and everything, it's changing very significantly in the next year or two.
Well, then I think you might end up with a situation where you might not be able to sell it, because if it's changed significantly, they might not want that. But they would be impressed with your sales record and maybe want a second book.
Right.
I can't say for sure. But
Mm-hmm.
why do you want the traditional deal?
Just for the distribution, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get it's going to be much better for you to control the quality too. So if you have a lot of photographs, things like that.
I don't have any photographs.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
No.
Yeah. So, I mean, one thing I can recommend to everybody here is if you're thinking, I want to try traditional, but I don't want this to go on and on, January of 25 is not that far away from fall of 24,
Yeah.
You can set a goal for yourself. Carson Tate, can't reach it. She wrote Own It, Love It, Make It Work, which is her second book. And I worked with her on that. That's I think it's McGraw-Hill that published it. She, in between her first and second book, she wanted to switch her agent. She ended her agreement with her agent. And then she needed a new publisher. So she just did this. She said, okay, AJ, I'm going to have an agent by the end of August, and I'm going to have a deal this fall. And she set the goal. And then if she didn't reach that goal, she would have had plan B. So sometimes it's helpful to just what's the cutoff? Will you try it for a month? Will you try it for 2 months? Sometimes just setting a goal like that helps it feel more in your control, unless like this book will never come out. Oh my gosh. Just offering you that. But if you want to self-publish, if that's
really helpful. Just how you laid it out to, have some tactile goals in hand. And if you don't reach that, you can go to plan B. So
yeah. And by the way, she did exactly that. She had the agent I was amazed. Like, oh my gosh, she had the agent by the end of August, and she had the deal in the fall, and a book came out, and and the thing is, she had worked so hard on the book already, and it turned in such a clean, beautiful, carefully crafted manuscript that she worked on with me using my reader first approach, yes, she still had editing to do, but it went like this. Just went, it was smooth, no bumps. So they were actually fast tracked that book. So that's another thing, you know, if you can say, here's my manuscript, looky, it's so, you know, they're still gonna see stuff that needs to be changed. That's what we do as editors. But if you've given them something really good and they can make it great, they love that. They're nervous when they take on a new nonfiction author, for example, who has no track record. Are they going to turn it in on time? What's the quality going to be like? Are they going to let the inner critic trolls get the best of them and then they're going to have a delay? So, you know, there are things you can do maybe to speed up the process by being ready. Okay, great question. Any other questions, Laura?
Just a quick one from Kat that I was responding to in the chat. How will your platform impact your decision about publishers?
Well, I didn't put it in there on purpose because some publishers, it's really, really important if you have a massive platform. But honestly, y'all, you have a bigger platform than you realize. You're just not you might only be thinking of social, and social doesn't sell books unless you're on TikTok and you have a bunch of followers. No one cares about your Twitter followers. You're not going to sell any books on Twitter. Certainly not now. So it's more about, can you sell this book? And you can demonstrate platform in ways you don't maybe necessarily realize right now. So I don't actually want you to consider that first off. I want you to make these other decisions first. And if you don't have a big enough platform, you might have to go to plan B. But you can still use all the work you do to get to plan A to get your plan B deal. I hope that helps. We're not talking about how to build a platform today, just FYI. We're talking, well, some of it we're talking about, but just in terms of planning the rest of the year. Okay, we're going to do part 3. This is me. This is how I think. Okay. I have to tell you a little story. A few years back, I don't remember how many years now. I want to say 5, Laura, author up when we were in Pennsylvania. I did an event with Mike McCallitz and Amber Vilhauer, and she's a website and book launch marketing expert. And we did this event in this little town in Amish country in Pennsylvania called Author Up. And I got this idea. I said, you know what? Let's ask them at the beginning how many books they want to sell. And I thought that was so smart. And Amber and Mike said, yeah, let's do that. And then the problem was nobody knew how to answer it. And then that sent me on the path that I now have the answer for you. So giving you a little context. This is what I want you to write down. Let's see if you know how to answer it. What's your big dream goal? Like stars align, everything's perfect, movie moment. How many books do you want to sell? And then what's your, I'm satisfied with this number goal. This is good. I feel fine with this. And then the last one is bare minimum, must sell no matter what, or I will be absolutely humiliated. What's that number? Bare bottom. Take a minute. I'm not giving you the answer about how to answer it. I'm not telling you that yet. I want to demonstrate something. Big dream goal, satisfied goal, bare minimum goal. Okay, in the chat, big dream goal, put it in. $1,250,000, $500,000, $100,000, $1,000,000, $100,000, $100,000, $1 million. These are big gaps. These are big gaps. Okay, notice how they're all round numbers too. Okay, what's your satisfied goal? Let's see. 50, 25, 50, 60. nice, KP. 8,973. 100. Notice the 100 is somebody else's big dream goal. 25K, 50, 100. There's another 100. Satisfied 50. Okay. What's your bare bottom, everybody? Must do, no matter what. Keep in mind, about 95% of authors do not sell more than 2,000 books in its lifetime. All right, let's see. 10, 5, 10, 10, 5. Oh, you guys want to be in the top 5%, I see. Look, the 25 goal for Donna is somebody else's satisfied goal. 1,300, Sean. Okay, you can dream bigger, Sean, I promise. 5,010 to 1. Okay, interesting. 500. Okay. Listen, that's more than most people, April. Sad to say, which is because a lot of folks don't know how to stay the course and keep pushing their book. All right, we're going to look at this from a different way. We're pulling arbitrary numbers out based on our emotions. What you just did was base your sales goal on, I don't know, this is my emotion. This is what I think is good. Let's not do that. Let's have a different framework for looking at it. Okay, next. What is the change you want to see in the world through your book? Jot that down. So if a bunch of people read it, what could happen? For me, my answer to that question is I want to change the way my industry, specifically those who are coaches, hybrids, etc., thinks about publishing so that we no longer have better business card books. I want that to be something you whisper because you shouldn't say it out loud because it's not allowed anymore. That's my big goal. Now, this is the key part. This is how you get to the number, everybody. Once you have that, the big change, who can help you facilitate the change? So we're thinking groups of people, associations, organizations, corporations. It could be nonprofits, could be for-profit. Just list 3. So for me, it might be publishers, book coaches, librarians. No, not librarians. I don't have my list in front of me. English teachers. Those are people that can help me facilitate that. They can help me make that change because they're also in my industry. Or maybe they're tangentially in my, because I could be not just book coaches, it could be life coaches, business coaches. What's the approximate total number for the 3 categories? List them. So you don't necessarily know. You can use Google, ChatGPT. This is one reason to use it. Don't use it to write your book. But you know, for example, I can say approximately how many coaches are there in North America? I looked it up. It was something like 100,000. I think that's a small number, but I'll use it. I'm not trying to be exact. I just want to get a general idea. So I would put 100,000 next to that. How many publishers? I could probably grab that easily, right? So you can estimate on your own now, or you can go Google quick if you want. I just mostly want to show you the process of figuring it out. You can then go deeper on this later. I, for example, have a list of about 15 organizations and groups of people who can help me facilitate the change I want to see. Then total up the numbers. So if I had 100,000 coaches and maybe I had 15,000 publishers and then I don't know, 50,000 English teachers, and then I want to get a total number. So maybe, and again, I'm just pulling numbers out right now, except for the life coach or the bit coach option. So let's say it's 165,000. You're probably going to have a number that's way higher than that because you're going to have more than 3, right? So I just want to demonstrate quickly. So I chose the number 3. I want you to have a much longer list of people who can help facilitate the change. And then you're going to take 1% of that number. Why do I choose 1%? I am not a math whiz. I do know, however, that this isn't a conservative, acceptable conversion rate. Right? I'm all about conservative. Can we do this thing? Or is it pie in the sky? If it's pie in the sky, you won't, if it's $1 million that you just pulled out, but you have no basis for it, it's pretty hard to make yourself say, okay, I can do 1 million books sold when you don't know what it takes to get there. And you don't know what that really means. And very few people sell 1 million books, right? But if you can tie it to, okay, I know I'm gonna, these are the people that can help me, and I could probably get 1% of them. Okay. Once you do that, you get your number. Again, when you're done here today, I sincerely hope that you'll keep brainstorming. It sometimes helps to do it with other people. Who else? We do this in Author Collective, which is my workshop alums. Who else? Who else? Who else? We keep saying, who else? Till we get a good list. Then what you do is you brainstorm 3 ways, and again, maybe more, but for today, to connect with that group or organization and provide value. Here's an example. I could provide a free webinar to coaches. I could provide a simple branded with their branding handout or worksheet or workbook for them that would be of value. I start brainstorming. What can I do? What can I do for them? Now I'm going to market to them directly in the way that would be useful. And then that becomes an integral part of your marketing plan. Most people have absolutely no idea how to do a book launch. They think it's just social media, parties, this and that, but there's another aspect to this. Now, you aren't going to do this all at the same time, but what if you could demonstrate to a publisher in a book proposal that you've thought through all these secondary and tertiary audiences, and you know exactly how you're going to work with them and market with them? And that's pretty effective compared to saying, I have 50,000 Twitter followers. And this is also how you start to come at a number. You figure out what's the change you want to see in the world, how many, who are the people that can help me facilitate it, approximately how many of them are there. Again, we're not going for exact numbers here. This is way better than pulling a number out of your you-know-what and saying 1 million, 50,000, 500,000, because that's emotional. This is based in reality. These people can help me, and I can help them. And let me try to get 1%. Now we can get a number. I'm going to sell, 47,000 books. I'm going to sell 196,000 books. Now you have a number that you figured out based on some sort of reality, and you can go forth. If I had $1 for everyone who said to me, I'm writing a book and it's going to be a New York Times bestseller and I'm going to sell millions of copies, I would have, I'd be in Spain. I'd just be in Spain right now, just living there, not talking to anyone. The reality is we don't actually think it through, but I'm inviting you to think it through so that you'll actually do it. Okay, any questions on this? Okay, part 4, I'm running slightly behind, but we're gonna catch up because this is short. Part 4, your manuscript and platform. So where are you in the writing and publishing process? Just circle the one or put a check mark by the one in your worksheet where you are. Kicking the tires, testing content, writing, finished first few chapters, self-edit phase, etc., etc. Then which marketing assets do you have right now, or do you have in the works? Website, social media branding. Notice I didn't say get 50,000 Twitter followers, just branding. Key relationships. Are you working on building them out, nurturing them? List of podcasts that you pitched or you will pitch, speaking plan, whether it's keynotes, workshops, classes, webinars, panel discussions, marketing materials, author photo, book photo, etc., plans. Are you doing any of this now? All you have to do is check it if you are. Don't sweat if you're not. It's just information so we know what you need to do. For each remaining month of 2023, how much time could you spend on writing and editing and other book-related tasks? Be realistic. 10 hours a week? Or if you need to do just by the month, because maybe if you have a vacation, figure it out. How much time do you realistically have? For example, I know that I can't work on, I just started a new book with Mike, as I mentioned. I'm not officially writing it until the fall because I have a lot going on this summer. Okay. So then this part, you might take you a minute where we just did, how much time do you have? Now we're going to do the loose publishing plan. So we have all this in context. And again, you might need to watch this back, take more time with it. I'm trying to get you through this, so you understand the worksheet, but you might need more time with it. So now we're going to do book-related goals based on everything we just thought through. And we thought through things not from an emotional standpoint, but from a tactical standpoint, strategy, our own desires, our own priorities and resources, what our reader needs. That's where I want you to come at this. Because you shoot yourself in the foot when you decide that you can't do this or you shouldn't do that, but you aren't even sure of it. You don't even know why you said it. Because prevailing wisdom says blah, blah, blah. Sure, it might end up being true, but let's not start there. Again, remember what I said? Let's not start with the compromise. Let's not start in that place. You can always go to it. Okay. So what I want you to do, these are the categories. You can see on the worksheet, I have this laid out for you. And everything that I have on this slide is in your worksheet. Okay. So for each month, I want you to know what you need to work on. Okay. Maybe you are going to submit, so you need a book proposal. You're going to go for traditional or high-end hybrid. Maybe you're still working out that first stuff that we talked about the book, and you need to spend some more time in development. Maybe you need to test your content. You aren't sure if it works. Maybe it doesn't. You need to spend more time making sure. Maybe you're writing. Maybe you're in the self-editing phase, getting it ready to send to editors. Or maybe you're working with your editorial team. So for the book part, choose from, and there could be other things too. These are the main ones. For each month, you're going to go through and you're going to know what are my goals in any one of these areas. You might be past all of them except one, right? It's up to you. I don't know exactly where everybody is, right? So you'll have to decide what's my goal that month. For that, then what's my goal for publishing? I don't want you thinking about these things in silos. I want you to think about them at the same time. So this is why I've given you this structure. In addition, in July, what do you need to do for publishing? Now, maybe you're past it. Maybe you're already being published. Okay, got stuff for you coming up. But maybe you have to do research on publishers and agents. Maybe you're going to work on book proposal. Maybe you're going to write some queries. Maybe you're going to start submitting, actively doing that. Maybe you're going to vet agents and publishers where you spend more time actually asking questions. Maybe you're going to build a DIY team if you're doing self-publishing. What for publishing path will you do in these months? And it's okay if it's 0 in 1 month. I just want you to think it through. Because you need to think about it simultaneously. The people make this mistake of let me do this, and then I'll do this, and then I'll do this. And it's a holistic thing you need to think about. Marketing assets. Can you do some of these things? I realize each one of these could be a class, but I'm just telling you, can you think about in July through December, what are some of your goals that you can do based on what you're trying to do, plan A, B, and C, and the time you already said you have for the month. What's realistic? And then sales goals. Because even if you're still writing your book, you can still do your organization's research. You can think of marketing strategies for each group, and you can even begin outreach so that you have a lot of that stuff in place and you don't wait till after your book comes out or just before your book comes out to do it, which you will honestly be too tired and you'll skip it. You'll just skip it. You're going to be too tired. Ask me. I know. I was too tired, and most of the authors I know are too tired. So that's the real deal. But you can start doing little baby things, just a little bit, little bit, little bit, little bit. I want you to set the intention. All right. So I'm going to take a break, but I do want to check for questions. Has this been helpful so far? Good. I know it's a lot of information. Any questions before break? Okay. When we come back, I want to go deeper into oh, wait. Yes, instead of individual box, April asks, instead of individual boxes, it's more of a spiral where ideas overlap. Yeah, so you might not be doing something for each of those every single month, but I want you to think consider whether you're going to. I want to take a break, then come back and if you have questions about when do I pitch a traditional versus hybrid? What do I have to do? How do I vet these people? Does this make sense? Here's what I came up with. You can even share with me. Is this, I want to have a good amount of time. And just because I love to be totally transparent, when we come back, I do want to tell you about the rest of the summer school. It's only going to take 5 minutes, maybe 3 actually. So I hope you'll listen to that. I want to tell you what's coming. And then we'll move into the Q&A so we have lots of time for it. Are you guys cool with, say, coming back? Do you want a full 10-minute break? No? Yes? I'm getting mostly no's. If you need more time, we're going to take 5. Okay. And if you need more time, just take it. That's cool. We'll see you when you come back, but let's do 5. Right, everybody? So I said I wanted to have half an hour for more detailed Q&A, and we will have it. So I am excited. Thank you to those who've been giving messages that this has been helpful. My goal here is I really hope I open up your eyes to possibilities. Again, I can't make any promises. Publishing is really tough, and it's a very long game. And you need to reframe your mindset around that. But I still hope that you will think differently about your approach based on what matters to you and what matters to your reader. And you can always find a way. Maybe it's going to take a little bit longer, but you can always find a way. The number one determining factor for success in publishing, and this comes from 18 years of experience, everyone, perseverance. That's it. That's no joke. That's just it. Otherwise, how would you explain so many mediocre books that are doing so well? It's perseverance, everybody. Okay, I see questions in the chat, and I'm absolutely getting them. But I do want to share summer school with you, and I hope that you will give me just a few minutes of your attention for this, because I'm super psyched. Okay. All right. So we're doing the first class, free classes. Here's the second one. It's on next Monday. I've never done this before. I was an acquisitions editor for a publishing company that I co-founded and ran for 8 years and sold to a mid-tier publisher, Chicago Review Press. So I'm going to tell you the 5 reasons I said no to manuscripts. And it doesn't matter. They're actually, it's the same, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, believe it or not. So I'm going to tell you the 5 so that you won't do them. Okay. And that's going to be a shorter, that's a 90-minute session. And we'll have time for Q&A as well. It's going to be fun. That's free. And you are already registered based on, because when you registered for this one, you registered for the other one. So I hope you'll attend, because that's when you get to ask me stuff. Okay. Then the third and final free one is writing mistakes editors have to fix. This is so common. The stuff that we have to fix, and a lot of people don't realize it. So why don't you fix it first? And then your editor will love you and be happy. What, Laura?
I just want to point out that everybody needs an editor, even editors. The time is from 2 to 3:30 p.m. on both of those classes.
Oh, sorry, I did it wrong. It's 2 to 3:30. Typo. Everyone needs an editor. Anyway, this is also going to be super fun, and I also haven't actually done this before. So I hope that you will attend. And also, please spread the word if you're finding value in this. I don't often have time to do free workshops. This is summer, I'm doing fun stuff. So take advantage of it. But then here comes, we did a survey I mentioned. What would you like to learn in a mastercraft next? Mastercrafts are 4-hour deep dive classes that I do. They're workshop, hands-on, feedback. They're amazing, and they're on a really tight topic. So the first one, this was the most requested, to take Test Drive Your Content, which is a standalone course I have, but to do it, to work together. So what I'll be doing, and it's 2 classes. The first one is Wednesday, July 12th. We'll be designing the test drive specifically for your book's content. We'll be doing in 4 hours, designing it so that not only do you have a test drive, but you have a test drive designed to get you the data you need to see if it works, and to get the stories, anecdotes, case studies, all that stuff that you need for the book. So if you're wondering, does my book work? This is how you figure it out. Then we'll do, I'll challenge you, please go do your test drive sometime between July and October. And then you'll bring that data, and I'll very clear instructions about how to collect it. You'll bring it with you. This is going to be so fun. The October 18th class, everybody will be bringing their data, and then I'll help you figure out how to evaluate it. What did you learn from it? What can we do to maybe improve the test drive, but more importantly, to improve the book? So this is July 12th is the first one, and then October is the second one. And with this, you get the standalone videos as well. But this is a workshop, meaning it's very hands-on. And the last mastercraft for the summer is Call to Greatness. This was the second most requested. A Call to Greatness, if you read my book, it's the Jack basketball story at the end of my book. I can't tell you how many people have asked me, how do I write that? Call to Greatness is a different way to end a book, to not only show the reader what they've learned, that you've delivered on your promise to them, but to lift them up to see a bigger possibilities than they ever thought possible when they first started the book. And there's an actual craft to it. There's an actual process for following it. Okay. We're going to work on this together on August 17th. And I'm thinking I'm going to do some pre-homework. I might send, I'm leaning toward having a little email that goes out that gives you something to think about before August 17th to bring to class. And finally, the last part of summer, the long-awaited, oh my gosh, I've been working on this for 2 years, 6-week editing workshop starts August 21st. It's going through my entire method, Editing Pass method, walking you through how to do it for 6 weeks. So ideally, you would be working on some part of your manuscript during the time. You don't need to have a finished manuscript. You could have a chapter or 2. That's fine. But it's teaching you how to actually do this. Also teaching you what is the editing process like? How do you deal with your editors? How do you respond? How do you make it through without sticking your head under the table and staying there forever? This is the class. There aren't any classes that teach you how to do this work for nonfiction, and there's plenty of them for fiction, but not nonfiction. So I'm going to teach you guys how to do it, and hopefully you have some content you can bring to it. Again, you don't need a full manuscript, and then if you want this checklist, it's in my book, but it's also for a free download at writeamustread.com. So you can, these are all the topics I'll be talking about with you, and we're doing some live edits and some fun things. Okay, I think that's it. Oh, one little note, last programming note, and then we're done. You know, I teach Top 3 Book Workshop. We start again in the fall. It's a 14-week class. A lot of my alums are here. If you decide that you're going to sign up, if you've been thinking, I'm going to do fall, I'm giving the Mastercraft classes and the editing workshop to anyone who signs up for fall workshop. But the clincher is you've got to sign up by the end of the month. So if anybody's been on the fence and wanting to do fall, just wanted to say, I'll give you all these Mastercrafts and the editing workshop, which you don't have to do this one. We're going to keep doing them. So you can wait till after fall class to take it. It's cool. All right. Wanted to just run. Thank you for giving me the ability to share that with you. If you have questions, email Laura at ajharper.com and she'll get you hooked up. Okay. Let's see. I'm going back in time here to the questions. Okay. Patty says, do you have any views on writers' conferences and how might we take advantage of them to make connections with agents and publishers? Sure. I mean, I think writing, and feel free to come off mute if you want to chat more about it. Writing conferences are great because they help you build community, and writing is lonely and you can learn a lot of things. I think some people go to too many writing conferences before they actually submit. But that said, I do actually have an alum who I love so much, who just went to a writing conference, booked 2 pitch sessions with an editor, agents, only 2. And because she knew her, she did all her work on the self-editing that we were talking about, by the way. She followed the same editing pass method, and she had her fundamentals, which you learn about in my book. She had that all down pat. She got a full manuscript to ask from both of them. Okay. So it can be great, but you've got to be ready.
Yeah. Okay.
She was ready.
There is, I don't know if you're familiar, there is a writer's center here in Bethesda, close to DC. It's a very, very nice community. And around it, there are a lot of writing conferences.
Okay. I mean, I would go vet the conference to see if it's worth your time. What's actually happening there? What are some of their success stories? Sometimes it can be helpful if you go on Twitter, ignore the nonsense, and just look for a hashtag about the conference or something, and look in the past. What kinds of things were people saying while they were at the conference that they were excited about? Just do a little homework, because writing conferences can be great, but they can also be spinning wheels. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, AJ.
Sure. Kat says, how do we connect with lesser known traditional publishers and how to vet them? Well, there's Writers Market, which lists all the publishers. There's Publishers Marketplace, which lists all the deals. That's on .com. It's what I would do is look for the books that are similar to yours, or just books you love. Look for who published those books, and then try to figure out if they are, you might be surprised. They could be a lesser known publisher. They might also be an imprint of a big 5, in which case, you'd need an agent or somebody who can get you past the gates. But just do some homework to check. So I had a student who I gave her that assignment, and she went and gave me a list of, say, 25. Actually, it was more like 30 publishers that she found related to books that she liked or were in her field. And then I kind of went through them and said, oh wait, that's an imprint of Simon and Schuster. That's an imprint of HarperCollins. You can check that, by the way. You just Google them and go see. An imprint is like a division of a company. So they're still part of that. They're still Big Five, but they might be called something else. Like Viking is a division of imprint of Penguin Random House, for example. So you just have to go see, and then you vet them. The way you vet them is you go look and see who they published, and then don't look on the publisher's website for information about them. Go look up their books on Amazon. Are their books selling? Do they have a lot of reviews? Then go find the author, see if you can reach out to them on LinkedIn, or maybe they have an email, and just ask, what was your experience with this publisher? It's important that you go directly to the authors to ask their experience. And if you're ever nervous, if you're looking up self-publishing packages, hybrids, or small presses, go to the site Writer Beware. And that is a service that an author has done for years, where they keep track of scams. Is that helpful? Okay, good. April says, do you have percentages of time that we should be spending on the different areas of tasks, like a pie chart? No, because it just depends on what are you doing. So April, tell me more about what's happening. Where are you in the process?
I have my first draft finished, and I am working on the editing checklist from your book.
Yay.
And so I've been working my way through there. Super helpful. So specifically, I'm thinking like book tasks, publishing path tasks, the marketing assets, those ones that you listed out for each month. So let's say I have 10 hours a week. How many of those hours should I be doing publishing things? Should I be doing marketing? Does that make sense? Like if I look at my pie chart of my time.
Yeah. So this is custom, which is why I'm asking you these questions. What is your plan? What are you going to go for? Type of path?
Self-publishing.
Oh, okay. So you have all the time in the world then to do so I would focus on finishing your manuscript, your editing primarily, but I would get an author. Do you have an author website?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I have a blog established.
And do you have you done cover design or any of those things yet?
No, it's on my list for things that are coming up in the future. So
okay, so when do you want to publish?
Hopefully this year, but most likely it'll be early next year.
I think that's more realistic. You need time because you need editing. So you got to go through the whole production process after this.
Mm-hmm.
And if you only have 10 hours a week, that's not very much, so that's going to keep you bogged down. But also you have to build out your launch plan and all those things and get that in place. So I would give yourself a little more breathing room. How many of the marketing assets do you have?
I don't know. I haven't looked at those specifically yet. I'm still very new. So
okay. So I would finish your draft. Are you going to get a developmental editor to help you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This is what I would do. Take the full 10, maybe take 1 or 2 hours a week, maybe just one, to start working out a plan for marketing of the things that you're going to need. Then I would use the whole rest of the time getting it ready for an editor. Then when that person has it, go to town on the marketing assets and start the publishing plan. But since you're self-publishing, you have control. So it would be different if you were traditionally trying to do traditional. I would have you kind of stop what you're doing and build a proposal if you were doing that. So try to get that editing done so you can hand it off, and then you'll have free up some of your time for the other pieces.
Okay. Yeah, I have more time in the summer, but then in the fall, it's gonna condense again, so.
Yeah, so I would use an hour or so a week to just start brainstorming what you want marketing to look like, because I found that most people don't know what they want or where to start, and it takes a lot of thinking time. So at least save some thinking time for that stuff, and then maybe half an hour to line up whatever you need to keep working on your team, getting everybody in place, and the rest of the whole time though should be getting that manuscript ready to hand off.
Okay.
Okay, because that's your bottleneck right now.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I love Anne's comment.
KP,
Where am I?
KP.
Okay.
Yes.
Are these on the website somewhere in case I want to refer peeps? What do you mean by
No, if not off topic, could you highlight the difference for building platform and publishing in fiction?
Oh, where did I miss that? Okay. Ask me again, sorry.
Highlight the differences for building platform and publishing in fiction.
Well, in fiction, it's really different. I mean, it's first of all, you've got to have your basic assets. So branded social media, author website, you have to be able to find you, that sort of thing. Those are you've got to have it. If I were in fiction right now, I would get myself a TikTok account. I would just do it. Because at this point, even if it never happens, publishers think, that's what publishers do. Oh my gosh, everybody's selling books on Instagram. Every author needs an Instagram. And then, oh my gosh, everyone's selling books on Twitter. And that's gone, by the way, all that's gone. Now it's, oh my gosh, TikTok is saving us. Every author needs to be on TikTok. So go, if I were, actually, I would do it in whatever genre, but especially fiction. That's where they are turning it out. I mean, this is nuts how many books they're selling on TikTok. So I would just say, so you can say you have it and then be somewhat active there. That would impress the F out of a publisher. Yes, they're on TikTok. And maybe not, it's gonna be something else in a few months, but just do it. Just don't resist. Do it. And then if you really want to show them you know what you're talking about, start doing things like speaking, panel discussions, trying to get gigs at writers' conferences, try to get gigs where readers hang out. Show that you're actively building your own influence. Get an email list going. That's everything. That's your strongest marketing asset, is an email list. And I think I didn't even put it on the list, which I should have. But also leverage your relationships with authors. In the fiction world, this is everything. It's also true in nonfiction, but fiction knows how to do it. You have got to read other people's stuff, amplify their stuff, help other people with their stuff. So that's what I would do for fiction. But the thing is, fiction doesn't have the same requirements for platform, but still, TikTok, please.
Next question is from Kat. How much should we budget for developmental editing? Is there any formula, and how do we vet them?
Oh, this is okay. I would be so there's people like me who are 18 years in the business, and it would be I don't even want to say the number. And then there's people who are really good at what they do and also very experienced, and you could maybe get them for say 25, 20. But then you can still get a decent developmental edit for, I would say, 10. If a person, maybe even 5, it depends, but I would be very nervous with anybody who charged less than 5. I would think they maybe weren't as experienced, or they were taking too many projects at the same time, and that they weren't going to be able to help me out. I know it's a wide range. How do you vet them? You've got to ask for referrals. That's really, really key. Ask other authors you know. There's also there's an editorial association in this country where people they list that. But honestly, it's all about going to that developmental editor site, checking to see, do they have experience in your genre? This is really critical. You know, it doesn't always cross over. You really wouldn't want me handling some sort of historical journalistic thing. I mean, you can tell I even just said thing. So I'm not the one. That's not, if you want a prescriptive nonfiction, self-help, business, spirituality, wellness, make something better, I am your person for sure. Also, I'm a halfway decent fiction editor. So you have to find people who have deep knowledge and experience in your genre. And then you need to find out from their clients directly, not just off the testimonials on the website. That's how I would vet. Is that helpful? Did I miss anybody? Anybody else have questions? Okay, please hit me with it. Now's your time. We have 14 minutes. I do want to make a couple things about timing, okay? Let's say you're going to do, you're thinking, I'm going to do plan A is traditional and plan B is hybrid. You might be thinking, let me try traditional and then I'll pitch hybrid if it doesn't work. I don't want you to do that. I want you to do them at the same time. Because it can take just as long to hear back from the top tier hybrids anyway, because they're selective. If they have trade distribution, they're on the same schedule as traditional, because it's all about the distribution and the sales teams and their schedules. So I don't want you to be in a situation where you say, like Carson Tate, she said, I'm going to get an agent by end of August and I'll have a deal in the fall. If you say, okay, I'm going to have 3 months for traditional and then I'm going to stop and I'm going to go pitch hybrid, well, then you're doing one thing at a time. But if you pitched hybrid at the same time, then you would have, if you were selected, you'd have those proposals, you'd have that already sewn up. And so you could just be honest with them and say, I'm just going to give it 1 more month before I decide. If it doesn't work out, then you have already done that. So then you're not making the process longer than it needs to be. So this is a mistake I see people make, is they wait till one's done to do the other. So don't do that, because you can always say no. Kat asks, if hybrid is 35 plus K, what would you need to sell to recoup and make a profit? Well, it depends on a lot of factors. How long is your book in terms of pages? You won't know that right now. In publishing, we talk about word count until the very end. So get used to that, by the way. You aren't pitching a 220 page book. You have to always know your word count. You have to be able to answer it right away. Right away. So it would depend on how long your book is. It would depend on the format, which means, is it hardcover? Is it paperback? Does it have a dust jacket? So there's too many X factors, but you're looking at making anywhere with hybrid, anywhere from, I would say, after you printing, $4 to $6 a book. So then you can do the math. But that's for print. Then you also have audio and digital sales, so you'll also make money from that. And then also translation rates can bring in some money for you too. Is that helpful? Does that answer your question? Do you have a follow-up, Kat?
No, I think you said it well. It depends on so many variables, but I'm just trying to get a sense of, when I think about putting $35,000 up front, what are realistic expectations, to at least cover that?
Well, I want you to figure out how you're going to sell it to earn that back. Yeah. That's what I want you to do. And maybe you're going to say, I can't do that. Well, let's do the math right now. Let's just do it. 35. So it's not just 35,000 though. It's also the cost to print, but I'll take that off the top. So let's just say 4 conservatively. You have to sell 8,750 books.
Okay.
You have to decide, can you pull that off? If you know you need to, then you go about doing it. If you decide I can't make any money from book sales, then you won't. You just have to have a strategy.
Well, if part of the reason or a significant part of the reason to do hybrid or traditional is trade distribution, what percent of the sales is going to be from their sales work compared to, and it's not either or, I understand, but in terms of, again, expectations of their sales team to sell books?
There's no percentage. The sales team is making sure your book's on the shelf as best they can. They're not actually selling it to individual readers. That's not their job. I have 2 students in my class right now who found my book at Barnes and Noble on the shelf.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
So
good.
Yeah. It's you won't, you set the goal and then go out there and sell it. Set the goal and then go out there and sell it. Find ways. We can't just have a launch and expect people to find it.
Right.
You have to continually work, and it doesn't have to be a 9-to-5 situation. You just need a plan for ongoing reader engagement to continue to sell your book. I told you about Hal Elrod. One thing I didn't mention is that he sold, the first year was not the good year. So this is why people quit. Miracle Morning in the first year was not the good year. He sold a lot of books, but he really sold books in the later years. So you can't think about, you have to be prepared for it to be a minute before you get paid. Never mind the payouts, the schedule, which is most of the time twice a year and sometimes quarterly. And that's after returns. So the publishers don't pay you until the bookstores have already the return window is closed. So you could end up waiting over a year after a book was sold to Barnes and Noble, but to get paid for it. So that's why I say you have to be prepared for the long game. You have to have a plan in place.
Yeah, so if you don't have 35 plus to invest, then you're looking at more traditional or self-publishing.
Yes. Although if you want a certain developmental editor who's going to cost a little more, you may end up spending it anyway. But traditional, you won't spend anything. And if any traditional publisher tries to get you to spend a penny, they're not a traditional publisher.
Thank you for sharing that. And, because I've heard people say, oh, I went traditional and it cost me X amount,
Nope, that's not traditional. A
All
traditional publisher enters into an arrangement with you, either with an advance on royalties or no advance, but you're giving them the right to the publication rights, usually worldwide, to publish your book in that language and in multiple formats. And usually if it's big 5, it's forever. If it's smaller presses, sometimes it's for 5 years and you can get your rights back after that. Although sometimes you can get your rights back from big 5 if it's not really selling. So that's another way. And you can often get your rights back for audio after a series. There's all sorts of asterisks here. Asterisk, But my point being that that is the arrangement. The publisher is taking a chance on you. You're not investing a single penny. Now, you might be spending money on marketing on your own. That's not the same thing as paying a publisher. If you have to buy copies, if they say you're required to buy a minimum of 1,000 copies, that's you spending money. So what they're doing is trying to hedge their bets there, because most publishing is gambling, and they're usually wrong. They are.
They're covering the cost of the developmental editor, right?
Well, a traditional publisher, you don't spend any money.
Right. So they're covering all those costs that you would normally, if you're self-publishing, or in some cases hybrid, you would have to cover.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, you have, it is, I'm not saying it isn't hard to get a traditional deal. It's still hard. But most people give up, and most people aren't creative about figuring out how to present themselves in a book proposal. And mostly people give up. That's really it. People give up. Vicky, did you have your hand up? Or were you just moving? Okay. We have 5 minutes. Anybody else with a quick question? Okay. Was this helpful today? Can you put in the chat if there was a takeaway, something you learned today that helped you? That'd be amazing to me. Thank you, April. Challenged assumptions, that's good. Strategic, managing your non-writing time. Yes, even with what I've already learned. Oh, thanks, Vicky. Vicky's one of my alums, by the way. So is Anne. There's another one, Margaret. Thank you, Margaret. Loose plan. Yes, Nikki. Loose plan. We have to be nimble. Lots of takeaways. Do not give up and have a plan. Yes, realistic book sales. Thank you, guys. This is great. As a reminder, we have another free class on Monday. What, Laura?
Margaret Andrews says, oh, this is convincing me to try traditional. You absolutely should be traditionally published, Margaret.
For sure, Margaret. For sure. You can always have hybrid plan B. That's what I'm saying here. It's not like, I'm not saying you will get, I'm saying if it fits your priorities and resources, try, set a window. And if that doesn't work, go to plan B. You know, that's how I would do it anyway. Okay, everybody. I'm so glad you showed up for this. We'll be on Monday talking about mistakes, the reasons why I rejected manuscripts. Never done this before. And I think you might find it helpful if you're submitting, but also even if you're self-publishing, because then you can fix those, because it would affect the reader. There's a reason why we rejected it, right? Because we knew we were going to have a problem there. All right, everybody. Have the best day. Thanks for coming. See you soon.